It began, as so many neighborhood dramas do, in the deceptively tranquil streets of Magnolia Crest, a suburban development nestled along the outskirts of a medium-sized American city. Rows of nearly identical houses lined the smoothly paved roads, each property fenced by manicured hedges and carefully tended lawns. On the surface, Magnolia Crest offered an idyllic retreat from urban chaos. Children playing on sidewalks, dogs trotting alongside joggers, neighbors exchanging pleasantries about the weather. Yet, beneath this postcard-perfect facade, there simmered a subtle tension, one stoked largely by the meddling of the local homeowners association. While HOAs could keep communities clean and orderly, it was also possible for the enforcers to grow overzealous. This was especially true in Magnolia Crest, where petty squabbles over fence heights or mailbox colors sometimes escalated into formal complaints. At the head of these enforcement efforts, in both name and spirit, was a woman known as Marilyn Garnett. Behind her back, nearly everyone called her Karen. Karen was in her mid-50s, with a helmet of hair precisely cut at chin level and a perpetual expression of "I know best." She wore cardigans even in summer and favored large, clacking heels that announced her presence on the sidewalks. Officially, she was Magnolia Crest's HOA treasurer, but it was no secret to residents that she exerted a great deal of power beyond her stated role. She had mastered the bylaws and budgets of the HOA, shaping them to her liking and occasionally overstepping her authority. Anyone who challenged her found themselves caught in a labyrinth of fines, warnings, and strongly worded letters. As a resident, I had learned to keep my head down and follow the rules, at least, until events unfolded that forced me to take a stand. My name is Riley. Like many in Magnolia Crest, I'd purchased a home here for the proximity to good schools and the promise of a safe, family-friendly environment. Little did I know I'd soon be at the heart of a scandal involving HOA funds, a lavish private party, and a live stream that would expose everything. It all began quietly. I noticed some unusual line items in the monthly HOA statement, a statement typically included in the neighborhood newsletter. Though I wasn't an accountant, I had enough sense to wonder why the association's budget for community events had suddenly quadrupled compared to past years. Karen's name, of course, was all over the financial documents as the treasurer who authorized the expenditures. At first, I told myself it was none of my business, so long as I paid my dues. Perhaps the HOA was planning a big 4th of July picnic or something similar. But as I soon learned, the truth was far more sinister. Around that same time, rumors spread among neighbors that Karen was hosting a huge community celebration in the next few weeks. Some said it was a block party. Others heard it was a fancy gala to show off Magnolia Crest. Strangely, no official invitations arrived. Only those close to Karen, her favored clique of bored allies, seemed to know the details. And some folks started whispering that the so-called community event was actually Karen's private birthday bash, financed on the HOA's dime. At first, these were just rumors. Our HOA had historically hosted genuine community events, like a family fun day in summer or a holiday cookie exchange in December, where everyone was invited. But those events were modest affairs funded by nominal fees or voluntary donations. The scale of this rumored party was rumored to be much larger: caterers, decorations, maybe even a band. If that was being paid for with HOA funds, it was a violation of the trust we placed in our treasurer. The question was, could we prove it? Little did we know, in only a few short weeks, the entire neighborhood would witness a showdown that would define Magnolia Crest's future. And it all hinged on one fateful evening, Karen's grand party, where lines would be drawn between those complicit in her scheme and those determined to expose it. One morning, while flipping through the monthly Magnolia Crest newsletter, my eyes landed on a glossy insert. Its heading, in large calligraphy, read, "Magnolia Crest Community Social, a celebration of our neighborhood spirit." Below, in smaller text, was the date, 2 weeks from Saturday, and a note that formal invitations would soon be sent. It urged everyone to mark their calendars. In and of itself, this might not have seemed odd. Yet, the content underlined that the HOA budget has allocated extra resources for an expanded event. There was no mention of how residents could RSVP or if they needed to bring anything. Instead, a line at the bottom read, "Please direct all questions to Treasurer M. Garnett." This was unusual, as typically questions went to the entire board, not a single individual. Growing increasingly curious, I called one of my friends, Stephanie, who lived on the far side of the development. Stephanie had a knack for picking up local gossip. She was also an unofficial champion of fairness, always the first to petition or volunteer for community improvements. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey," I said, "did you see that fancy insert in the newsletter about a community social?" Stephanie laughed bitterly. "Oh, I saw it. Word on the street is that it's basically Karen's big birthday party, disguised as an HOA-sponsored event, so she can foot the bill using our dues." I frowned. "Are you certain? That would be extremely unethical. Maybe we should wait and see what the invitations say." "I have a neighbor who's part of Karen's circle," Stephanie confided. "He slipped up and mentioned that Karen's turning 55 soon and wanted to go big. Caterers, decorations, even a local band. He was bragging about how the HOA budget would cover it." When I pressed him for details, he clammed up and said, "Just wait for your invitation." But as of now, neither of us has actually received a formal invitation, have we? I admitted I hadn't. This is, well, it's just rumors. But if it's true, it's a major breach of trust. I guess we'll have to see. Days turned into a week. We watched the mailboxes diligently, expecting these invitations. Nothing arrived for most residents. Meanwhile, I overheard two of Karen's close friends discussing a dress code for the event, something about semi-formal attire. Another neighbor claimed she saw a catering truck delivering samples to Karen's home. The more we gleaned, the more it felt like the community social was shaping up to be an exclusive birthday bash, not a genuine HOA event. Yet publicly, Karen insisted it was open to everyone. So why weren't the invitations mailed? And why was the entire neighborhood in the dark? By the second week, more signs emerged. Over near the clubhouse, a small building in the heart of Magnolia Crest that typically hosted HOA meetings and small gatherings, an array of decorations began to appear. Large potted plants, ornamental banners, and racks of chairs sat stacked outside the building's locked double doors. If it truly was an event for the entire community, it certainly was shaping up to be more elaborate than anything we'd ever seen. On a hunch, I requested to view the HOA's financial statements. Under the association's rules, these records are accessible to any homeowner upon request, though typically you had to fill out a form and wait for the next board meeting. Karen had always been the one to manage them, so I suspected potential roadblocks. Yet, to my surprise, a day later, I received a knock on my door. It was Dave Caldwell, the HOA president. "Riley," he said, his tone cautious. "I heard you requested the financial statements. May I ask why?" I shrugged. "I'm just curious about the budget for this upcoming community social. It seems large." Dave gave me a long look. "Yes, that's precisely why I wanted to talk to you. Karen mentioned your request and seemed reluctant to hand over certain documents. But HOA bylaws are clear. You have every right to see them. I'll provide a copy. I just want you to understand, we're in a tricky position. As treasurer, Karen has wide discretion for event planning. I'm not certain we have official protocols to stop her from spending allocated funds. The board authorized a general event budget, and she's run with it." I accepted the envelope Dave offered. "Thank you for giving me these. I'm not trying to stir up trouble, just want to ensure everything is legitimate." He nodded. "I appreciate your diligence. Let me know if you find anything truly concerning. Karen's been insistent that this is all above board, but the numbers are bigger than we've ever approved for a single event." Later that afternoon, I pored over the documents. My jaw dropped. The budget line for community social and festivities had soared to nearly $20,000, a staggering figure considering past events had never exceeded $2,500 or $3,000. Itemized costs included catering, entertainment, venue enhancements, and decorations. Even more suspicious were repeated line items like additional services, each costing thousands with no further description. Handwritten notes from Karen authorized every expense, citing community building initiative. I felt a churn in my stomach. The rumors looked to be true. Karen was using the HOA's money for something extravagant. If this was indeed a private party disguised as a community event, it was not just unethical, but possibly illegal. My problem, though, was proving that she intended to restrict attendance or profit from it personally. That would require more than rumors. It would require evidence. the sort that would stand up in front of the entire HOA membership. The week of the party arrived, yet still no official invite had shown up for me or most of my neighbors. Instead, Karen's clique casually boasted they had special instructions to show up at the clubhouse on Saturday evening, wearing semi-formal attire. As for the rest of us, we were in the dark. That is, until I received a strange phone call on Friday night. My phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Tentatively, I answered. A hushed voice on the other end said, "Riley, you don't know me well, but I live on Rosebud Lane, near the clubhouse." I overheard Karen telling a group of her friends to bring $20 entry fees for guests who aren't on her exclusive guest list, like families in the neighborhood who might try to crash her private function. The speaker paused, clearly nervous. She's collecting money at the door, but only from those she doesn't consider part of her circle. Meanwhile, she's used HOA funds to pay for everything else. That can't be right, can it? My heartbeat quickened. No, it's not right at all. Who is this? The caller hesitated. My name is Shelby. I'm a friend of one of Karen's close acquaintances, but I'm not exactly in her good graces. She let it slip that if I show up, I'd better bring my admission fee, unless I want to be turned away. I thought about telling the HOA president, but I'm worried Karen will retaliate. You seem to be the only person openly poking around. I swallowed hard. Thanks for telling me, Shelby. This is big. She's effectively setting up a paywall for a party financed by our dues. That's outrageous. If she's truly collecting money at the door from neighbors, that's more than enough evidence to blow this wide open. If I get proof, the HOA board can't ignore it. After we hung up, I mulled over what Shelby had said. I had to confirm this. A direct confrontation with Karen wouldn't work, as she'd simply deny everything. But if there was a way to record or live stream her collecting these so-called entry fees, it would be irrefutable. People often forgot that these days, a smartphone camera could capture indisputable evidence in real time. I hatched a plan. The evening of the party, I'd show up near the clubhouse, see if I could witness the entry fee transactions, and quietly live stream them for other residents, and hopefully for Dave Caldwell or other board members to see. If Karen was brazen enough to demand money on the spot, she'd be publicly incriminating herself. When Saturday arrived, Magnolia Crest buzzed with curiosity. A row of cars kept pulling up outside the clubhouse around midday, unloading boxes, floral arrangements, and an array of catering supplies. By mid-afternoon, you could smell the aroma of food drifting from the building. I strolled by under the guise of walking my dog, noticing how plush the decor was. Through the large windows, I spotted white tablecloths, tall centerpieces of fresh flowers, and even what looked like a chocolate fountain. This was no modest potluck. This was a high-end affair. Oddly, the official invite for the so-called community social never arrived in most mailboxes. Yet I overheard a group of Karen's friends bragging about how exclusive the night's festivities would be. A snippet of conversation drifted my way. Oh, Karen's arranged everything so elegantly. Caterers from that fancy downtown place. She said only the right people would get in for free. Huh? The others will have to pay or be turned away. By early evening, I was certain the rumors were true. Karen had commandeered the HOA's budget to throw herself an opulent birthday party. Worse still, she planned to charge neighbors at the door if she hadn't personally invited them. The entire concept was infuriating, using everyone's dues, then restricting who was welcome. At 6:30 p.m., dressed in a casual but presentable outfit, I grabbed my smartphone and set it to record discreetly. But I had an even better idea than just capturing video on my phone. I could live stream using a private link, then share that link with Dave Caldwell and a few key neighbors, so they'd see real-time evidence of what was happening. This would prevent Karen from claiming that I doctored the footage afterward. The truth would be broadcast live. No chance for her to spin it. I texted Dave. Heading to the clubhouse now. I have a hunch we'll see some shady stuff. Keep an eye on your email. I'll send you a private live stream link. If it's quiet, it means no wrongdoing. But if not, watch for yourself. Dave replied almost immediately. Understood. We'll watch. If it's truly bad, I'll bring the board in. I approached the clubhouse around 6:50 p.m. The official community social was slated to start at 7 p.m., according to the newsletter insert. A small crowd had gathered outside the double doors, some folks dressed to the nines, others in more casual garb. At the entrance, I recognized Karen's close ally, Brittany, a woman who regularly seconded Karen's motions in HOA meetings. She stood by the door with a small table, on which I saw a folder, a cash box, and what looked like a typed list of names. I started my Livestream app, making sure the camera lens was mostly unobstructed. Holding my phone at chest level, I pretended to be browsing social media while the video quietly recorded. Then I sauntered closer, straining to listen. Sure enough, a man in a polo shirt walked up, greeted Brittany politely, and she checked the list. "What's your name?" she asked in a clipped tone. The man said, "It's Sam. I live on Willow Drive." Brittany flipped through pages, frowned, and said, "I'm not seeing you here as an approved guest. That'll be $20 admission." Sam frowned back. "Wait, I thought the flyer said this was a community event. I pay my HOA dues." Brittany shrugged. "Karen's instructions. If you're not on the guest list, it's $20. You can pay by cash or check, or you can go home, I guess." I zoomed my phone's camera in slightly, capturing the entire exchange. Sam muttered in disbelief, but reached for his wallet. While it wasn't Karen herself at the door, the system was in place. This was the exact scenario I'd suspected. A moment later, a small group approached, a couple who apparently had been personally invited by Karen. Brittany greeted them effusively, found their names on her list, and waved them in without charge. The difference in reception was glaring. I felt my adrenaline spike. This was the evidence we needed. Right now, Dave was presumably watching from his home or phone, seeing the scam unfold in real time. At 7:05 p.m., the double doors swung open, and Karen herself stepped out. She wore a knee-length, glittery dress and had pinned a sash across her chest reading "Birthday Girl." That was all the proof anyone needed. The woman was celebrating her birthday on the HOA's dime. She gave a saccharine smile to the small crowd outside. "Welcome to our celebration of Magnolia Crest," she trilled. "Just check in with Brittany, everyone, and enjoy your evening. It's going to be a wonderful night for our dear community." She locked eyes with me briefly, then gave a prim nod, as though acknowledging my presence but not suspecting anything. I simply smiled back, phone still angled for the live stream. With the live stream rolling, I carefully edged closer, waiting for an even more damning scene. Karen herself demanding an entry fee or referencing her personal party. My opportunity arose when an older couple, Bill and Sandra, arrived. They'd seen the newsletter advertisement but never received a formal invite. They innocently believed it was open to all. Dressed in modest attire, they walked up to the table. "Name, please?" Brittany asked. "Bill and Sandra Jennings. We live on Maple Lane," Bill said, offering a polite smile. "We're excited to attend the neighborhood's social event." Brittany scanned her list, shot them a condescending glance, and declared, "You're not on the list. That'll be $20 each." Sandra's eyes widened. "Each? That's $40 just for the two of us to get in? That can't be right. The flyer didn't mention any admission fee, and we pay our HOA dues on time." Brittany shrugged again. "Karen's rules. If you're not an approved guest, you pay. Take it or leave it." At that moment, Karen glided over, no doubt drawn by the confrontation. "Hello, is there an issue?" She paused, noticing Bill and Sandra's distressed expressions. "Oh, are you not on the list?" She turned to Brittany. "You know the policy, $20 a head for non-invited guests. They're welcome to join if they can pay." "But," Bill stammered, confusion etched on his face. "Isn't this an HOA community event?" Karen's smile wavered. "Yes, but we must manage capacity and ensure an elevated atmosphere." She gestured vaguely at her dress. "We've put a lot of resources into tonight. We can't just open the doors to anyone who sees a flyer. This is truly for, well, those who are dedicated to Magnolia Crest's vision." There it was, a direct statement that the party was not truly open to all residents, but restricted unless you were on Karen's personal list or you paid an extra fee. My phone camera captured her words in crisp audio, every nuance of her haughty tone. In my earpiece, I put a small Bluetooth bud in so I could hear if Dave texted. I heard a faint chime. Someone was sending me messages. I bet Dave and possibly other board members were reacting in real time. Bill and Sandra exchanged glances, then Bill fished out his wallet. "Fine," he muttered. "But this is the last time we come to one of your events." He handed over $40 to Brittany. She scribbled something on her clipboard, put the money into the lockbox, and waved them inside. Karen turned, and for the first time, she seemed to notice the angle of my phone. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as though suspecting I was filming. I held it casually, smiling politely. She must not have wanted to cause a scene in front of her paying guests, so she forced a grin, said, "Enjoy the evening," and drifted away. At that moment, I was certain the footage was more than enough to incriminate her. Still, I lingered, capturing a few more interactions, each more damning than the last. Around 7:30 p.m., I slipped away from the clubhouse entrance. My phone still streamed quietly. I found a discreet spot behind some bushes and took a moment to check my notifications. Sure enough, Dave Caldwell had sent me a string of texts. 7:05 p.m. I see this. She's literally charging neighbors at the door. Unbelievable. 7:10 p.m. Forwarded the link to other board members. Keep filming if you can. 7:15 p.m. We're in a group call. This is huge. She's definitely misappropriating HOA funds. 7:25 p.m. We need a final confirmation that this event is truly her personal birthday. Can you catch that on camera? I typed back quickly. I got it. She's wearing a birthday girl sash and referencing how it's her special night. We have more than enough. I'll come to your place and help you compile the evidence. Dave wrote, "Perfect. Bring the raw footage, and we'll preserve a copy to present at an emergency board meeting tomorrow." Leaving the party behind felt exhilarating. I'd come as an uninvited observer, but ironically, I'd captured one of the biggest scandals in Magnolia Crest's history. As I walked home, I passed a few neighbors who were just arriving, some in fancy clothes, others in jeans. I noticed they all paused at the door and faced the same paywall. Meanwhile, I mentally tallied the total Karen was making from unsuspecting or strong-armed neighbors. That money wouldn't even offset what she'd spent of the HOA's funds. She was effectively charging an entry fee to an event she claimed the HOA was sponsoring. Within half an hour, I was at Dave's modest ranch-style home. We reviewed the live stream footage with two other board members, Marjorie and Ethan, who looked on in stunned disbelief. Marjorie shook her head, outraged. She used thousands of our dollars to cater a personal birthday party, then had the gall to charge neighbors more money? This is beyond unethical. It could even be considered fraud. Ethan nodded gravely. She's in serious violation of our bylaws, misuse of funds, misrepresentation of a community event, and discriminatory admission practices. He pointed at a paused frame showing Karen in her sparkly sash, referencing the entry fee. No board in their right mind would let her remain treasurer after seeing this. Dave rubbed his temples, as though the stress weighed heavily. We'll call an emergency HOA meeting tomorrow, a Sunday, if possible. We can't let this wait until next month's session. If any of us remain silent, it'll be an endorsement of her behavior. Before we parted ways, Dave pulled me aside. I'm sorry it came to this, but I'm glad you captured the proof. Without it, she'd spin the story. Now, we have undeniable evidence. The entire board can watch it. I nodded, relief mingling with anticipation. Tomorrow's going to be intense, but it's the right thing to do. Word spread overnight that Karen's so-called community social was not the open, welcoming affair she'd advertised. Some neighbors left early, furious at the entry fee demanded at the door. Others stayed, either unaware or resigned, and presumably tried to salvage some enjoyment from the evening. By the time the party ended, well past midnight, Karen had both squandered thousands of HOA dollars and extracted a smaller fortune in fees from unsuspecting neighbors. When Sunday morning dawned, the rumor mill was in overdrive. Residents posted rants in local neighborhood Facebook groups. Some demanded Karen's resignation, citing unethical behavior. Others who'd been turned away at the door seethed at how their own dues had funded a party they couldn't attend unless they paid again. The entire atmosphere in Magnolia Crest was charged with betrayal and anger. At 9 a.m., Dave Caldwell sent out an official email to the HOA mailing list. Emergency meeting of the Magnolia Crest HOA. When? Today at 4 p.m. Where? The clubhouse, now vacated from last night's event. Reason? Urgent deliberation regarding the finances and events of July 15th, 20XX. That brief announcement was enough to light a fire. People rearranged their schedules, determined to attend. Karen, presumably, received the same email. No one was sure how she would react. Many guessed she'd try to defend herself, spinning the narrative or shifting blame to others. But in the face of concrete video evidence, could she? In the interim, The board convened privately at Dave's house to finalize their strategy. They invited me to show the unedited footage to any HOA official who had doubts. By 3:30 p.m., I joined them at the clubhouse to set up a projector and screen, ensuring we could broadcast the captured confrontation for all to see. If Karen tried to dismiss it as fake news, the raw video would prove otherwise. At 3:55 p.m., a steady stream of angry residents began arriving. People had rarely seen the HOA's typically drab meeting space so crowded. The air was tense, many exchanging whispered theories about how Karen would respond. Some worried she wouldn't appear at all, though that seemed unlikely given her usual bravado. By 4:10 p.m., the clubhouse was packed with more than 50 residents, an unusually large turnout. Dave Caldwell stood at a makeshift podium near the front. Marjorie, Ethan, and the other board members flanked him. The clamor of conversation subsided when Dave cleared his throat and addressed the room. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began. "We've called this emergency session to discuss serious allegations against our treasurer, Ms. Marilyn Garnett." A rustle of murmurs spread through the crowd. Karen stood near the back, arms folded, her face set in a mask of defiance. Evidence has surfaced indicating potential misuse of HOA funds and false representation of last night's event as a community function, when in fact it was partially restricted and incurred an unauthorized admission fee. Karen scoffed loudly. "These allegations are baseless. We always charge small fees at events to offset costs." She tried to continue, but Dave raised a hand to silence her. "Ms. Garnett, you'll have a chance to speak. First, we have video evidence to present, collected by one of our residents." He gestured to me at the front row. I connected my phone to the projector, queued up the live stream recordings, and turned up the audio. For the next few minutes, the entire room watched clip after clip of neighbors being turned away or forced to pay. They saw Karen in her shimmering birthday sash, referencing how non-invited guests had to fork over $20 each. The hush in the clubhouse was broken only by collective gasps and outraged whispers. Several times, Karen tried to interject, but Marjorie shushed her sternly. When the video ended, Dave closed the projector screen. Based on this footage, it's clear that last night's event was neither open nor free to the entire community. Moreover, Ms. Garnett used approximately $20,000 of our association's budget for the party. He lifted a stack of papers. "We have itemized financials showing how the funds were allocated. As you can see, no such authorization was ever given by the rest of the board for a personal birthday celebration." Ms. Garnett labeled it as a community-building initiative. But in practice, many residents were forced to pay additional fees to attend. A wave of indignation rippled through the crowd. People who had forked over money shouted in anger. "I want a refund," someone hollered. Another demanded, "Resign, Karen. This is theft." The uproar escalated until Dave hammered a small gavel on the table, calling for order. Karen's cheeks burned red. Finally, she stepped forward, attempting to maintain composure. I did no such thing. The $20 was a recommended donation to help defray costs. If my well-meaning friend, Brittany, enforced it incorrectly, that's unfortunate. But I never intended to personally profit. You're on video telling neighbors they had to pay if they weren't on your list." Ethan exclaimed, "That's not a donation. That's an admission fee, plain and simple." Karen sputtered, "I was trying to ensure that we didn't exceed capacity. People had the option to walk away." Marjorie stood abruptly, pointing her finger. "Stop. We have the evidence. You used our money for your private party, then charged more at the door. This is a clear violation of the fiduciary responsibility you hold as treasurer. There's no excuse." As the tension soared, Dave addressed the group again. "We, the board, have the power to take disciplinary action when an officer is found to have acted against HOA bylaws. We have reviewed the evidence, and we find Ms. Garnett's actions to be a gross misuse of funds and authority. She is hereby suspended from her role as treasurer, effective immediately, pending a full audit of the association's finances." A smattering of applause and cheers broke out, mingled with angry calls for Karen's immediate removal. Karen's face twisted in fury. "You can't do that. I was elected by the community." Ethan countered calmly. "You were elected, yes, but you have to abide by the bylaws, which you clearly violated. If you want to contest this, we'll put it to a vote right now among the membership." Dave turned to the crowd. all in favor of suspending Ms. Garnett from her treasurer position and launching an investigation into her expenditures. Say aye. A roar of aye filled the clubhouse. Dave then asked, all opposed. Only a tiny handful, presumably Karen's closest friends, muttered nay. The motion carried overwhelmingly. Karen's shoulders sagged, a mixture of rage and defeat in her eyes. Fine, she snapped. But you're ignoring the good I've done for this neighborhood. If you want to crucify me over one misunderstanding, go ahead. Just know I won't go down without a fight. Marjorie moved in for the final blow. We expect you to comply with our request for a full financial audit, or we'll have no choice but to escalate. If we find evidence of any other misappropriated funds, the board may pursue legal action. At that, Karen glared at the crowd, turned on her heel, and stormed out of the clubhouse. The door slammed behind her, leaving the rest of us in stunned silence. After a moment, the silence gave way to relieved chatter. We'd witnessed the downfall of the HOA's most powerful figure in real time, all thanks to the live stream that no one could refute. In the days that followed, the HOA's newly assembled audit committee, a small group of volunteers including an accountant, 2 board members, and an attorney, pored over every ledger and receipt. They discovered that Karen had, indeed, earmarked tens of thousands of dollars for her lavish community social, which turned out to be her birthday celebration. The final tally was shocking. She'd spent nearly $22,000 in total, not to mention the undisclosed sum she'd collected at the door. Some of those door payments were in cash, so no one could trace precisely how much she pocketed or whether she planned to reimburse any of it. Facing potential legal trouble, Karen reached out to the board through her lawyer, offering to repay the misused HOA funds in exchange for not pressing charges. The board deliberated, balancing the desire for justice with the practical need to recoup the money. Eventually, they struck a deal. Karen would write a check covering the full amount plus a penalty to account for any lost funds. She also agreed to step down from the HOA entirely, foregoing any future role or claim to authority. The news that she'd be returning the money circulated quickly, easing the anger among residents who felt their dues had been stolen. The attorney who served on the board recommended that if Karen repaid everything, they could avoid a lengthy court battle, which would cost the association more time and money. Many agreed that the primary goal was restoring the neighborhood coffers and ensuring such a betrayal couldn't happen again. For her part, Karen went quiet. She wrote a formal letter of apology, though many suspected it was more an attempt to mitigate legal consequences than a genuine expression of remorse. Regardless, the board accepted her check and confirmed that the financial damage had been repaired. The next step was regaining the community's trust. With Karen gone, Magnolia Crest's HOA set about reforming its governance. The board called a special election to fill the vacant treasurer's seat. Dave Caldwell and the rest of the team introduced new checks and balances. No single officer could authorize large expenditures without a secondary signature, and all community events required open proposals and transparent budgeting. The fiasco with Karen had proven how easily one individual could exploit the system if no one was watching. While some in the neighborhood worried that the scandal had tarnished Magnolia Crest's reputation, others found solace in the fact that the community had come together to root out the wrongdoing. The last board meeting before the treasurer election included a heartfelt speech by Dave Caldwell, in which he said, "I know the last few weeks have been difficult. We discovered the misuse of our funds, but we also saw the strength of our community. Thanks to vigilant neighbors who refused to turn a blind eye, we've restored accountability to our association. Let's take this opportunity to move forward, not in bitterness, but in unity." People applauded, many nodding. Indeed, the neighborhood felt different now, more awake, more engaged. Folks who once avoided HOA meetings because Karen runs everything anyway started showing up, eager to have their voices heard. A wave of volunteerism swept the area, with residents forming committees for landscaping, security, and actual community-building events. This time, these events were truly inclusive and fairly funded. On the day of the special election, a local accountant named Susan Romero was chosen as the new HOA treasurer, winning by a landslide. She campaigned on a platform of transparency and communication, vowing never to let a repeat of the Karen fiasco occur. Her acceptance speech was short but sincere. I promised to guard every dime of our dues as though it were my own, ensuring that all our spending genuinely benefits Magnolia Crest. Though Karen's misdeeds left a bitter aftertaste, life in Magnolia Crest soon returned to a sense of calm, albeit a more watchful calm. Neighbors were gentler and more cooperative in the aftermath, as though collectively realizing that complacency had allowed Karen's corruption to thrive. Homeowners asked more questions, demanded receipts, and welcomed the new sense of democratic oversight. Meanwhile, the board planned a legitimate community social, sans inflated budgets or private agendas, setting it for the following season and inviting every single household in a spirit of true camaraderie. On a warm autumn afternoon, I was watering my front lawn when Dave Caldwell passed by, stopping to wave. He looked more relaxed than he had in months. We exchanged pleasantries before he said, "Riley, I want to thank you again. If you hadn't live-streamed everything, we'd still be unraveling the truth. You saved us from a long, drawn-out fight." I set down my watering can. We all played a part. You and the board had the courage to act on that footage. But yeah, I'm glad we got it in real time. Karen couldn't deny what was right there on camera. Dave smiled. She sure tried. But that's all behind us now. Next time we have a real community party, I hope you'll help us plan it. I grinned, recalling how ironically I'd once steered clear of HOA involvement. Now, I felt proud to be part of a neighborhood that had confronted wrongdoing head-on. Absolutely, I told him. Count me in. A few days later, an official announcement arrived in our mailboxes, a harvest festival scheduled for November. The pamphlet invited everyone. No entrance fee, no exclusivity. Come one, come all. It read, promising potluck-style dishes, local crafts, and a truly communal spirit. The entire neighborhood buzzed with excitement, and folks offered to bake pies, bring lawn games, or set up kid-friendly activities. In that moment, I knew Magnolia Crest had emerged stronger. Yes, we had faced a scandal. Yes, we'd lost faith in our treasurer. But by exposing the scheme in front of the entire community, we reclaimed ownership of our HOA. And for me personally, I discovered that sometimes you need to stand up and shine a light on wrongdoing, no matter how entrenched the Karen might be. In the end, our neighborhood overcame the betrayal by forging a better, more transparent future. The lavish party Karen had planned to glorify herself ended up being her downfall, all thanks to a simple live stream that revealed her double dealing. And while she never formally apologized to all of us, we found closure in the restitution she was forced to pay, in the new policies ensuring no single person could dominate the HOA, and in the thriving sense of community that blossomed from adversity. A year on, Magnolia Crest is a place where neighbors greet each other with real warmth, events are genuinely inclusive, and the memory of Karen's misdeeds has become a cautionary tale. We've moved past the scandal, holding firmly to the lesson that vigilance, and a little bit of digital evidence, can uphold justice, even in the quiet streets of suburban America.